Some connections transcend time, space, and even logic itself. There are encounters that cannot be explained merely by external circumstances. They feel as though they were written on a deeper plane, invisible to the eyes, yet intensely felt by the soul. When two souls are destined to meet, the universe seems to move silent forces to unite what in essence was never truly apart. This calling is not merely romantic or poetic. It speaks to something archetypal, an ancestral memory that lives within the collective unconscious. Even after separations, distances, or silence, something greater persists. The psyche knows the way back, even when reason doubts it. In this video, we'll dive into Carl Jung's principles to understand how the soul recognizes what belongs to it, and why destiny never forgets two beings who were made for each other. If you feel there's a connection that never fades, comment, "What's true always finds its way." Carl Jung's analytical psychology offers a powerful lens through which to understand the feeling that some connections are inevitable. When we speak of two souls destined to meet again, we are dealing with deep contents of the collective unconscious and the journey of individuation. According to Jung, every human being carries within not only their personal psychic story, but also universal archetypes, primordial images that structure our experience of life and connect us to something greater. Among these archetypes are the Anima and the animus, unconscious representations of the feminine in the man's psyche and the masculine in the woman's psyche. These inner images profoundly influence how we choose, idealize, or feel drawn to others. Often what we perceive as destiny is actually a deep activation of these archetypes projected onto another person. However, when there is true resonance, it is not just projection, it is a call to integration. The journey of reunion between two souls can also be understood as the meeting of two shadows. Jung stated that every individual carries denied or repressed aspects, the shadow. Meaningful relationships often reveal these hidden sides, provoking discomfort, growth, and transformation. When two people are truly destined to meet, it is because both are ready to serve as mirrors for each other and to walk together toward individuation, the process of becoming one's truest self. Thus, the destiny that never forgets two souls can be understood as the unconscious itself, working to lead us back to what is essential, to the wholeness we seek within and beyond ourselves. This reunion, therefore, is less about luck and more about consciousness, evolution, and the profound synchronicity that governs the psyche. Not every meaningful encounter can be explained by logic or statistics. There are moments when coincidences are so unlikely and so full of meaning that they feel orchestrated by an invisible intelligence. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the simultaneous occurrence of two or more events connected not by cause, but by shared meaning. When two souls destined to meet cross paths again, it is often synchronicity that signals the importance of that moment, as if the universe were conspiring to make it happen precisely as and when it should. Synchronicity is not merely an impressive coincidence, it is a symbolic language of the unconscious. Jung believed that, at certain moments, the inner world of the psyche aligns with the outer world of matter, creating meaningful events that cannot be ignored. These events carry emotional and symbolic intensity that deeply affects us, awakening something dormant within. In soul connections, this often manifests through signs, premonitory dreams, intuitions, repeated symbols, or unexpected meetings in unlikely places. Many people tell stories of meeting someone by chance but feeling an odd familiarity, as if they had known that person forever. This can be understood as an archetypal recognition, something in the psyche recognizing the other as a significant part of its own path. Synchronicity acts as a silent guide in these moments, suggesting that such an encounter is not ordinary but symbolic, with the potential to bring transformation and self-knowledge. It's important to note that synchronicity does not force anything. It simply reveals possibilities. It's up to each individual to perceive, reflect, and decide whether they are ready for what that encounter awakens. When two souls are truly prepared to meet, synchronicity intensifies. Small details begin to align: random meetings, resurfacing past connections, messages, songs, and repeating symbols. All these form a field of meaning that transcends reason and speaks directly to the heart. These signs are not magical in the superficial sense of the word. For Jung, they are expressions of the self, the regulating center of the psyche, guiding the ego toward wholeness. Synchronicity, then, is not only about the other person, but about how deeply that meeting resonates with our own individuation process. When two individuals cross paths through synchronistic events, both are being invited to look inward and understand that the encounter reflects something essential that needs to be integrated. That's why profoundly synchronistic meetings often bring challenges, discomfort, or even ruptures. Synchronicity shows the way but doesn't guarantee comfort. It stirs the soul, shakes certainties, and invites the expansion of consciousness. When we learn to notice these signs, we can see how the universe conspires in favor of what truly has purpose in our journey. In the context of destined souls, synchronicity is the invisible thread weaving together moments, places, gestures, and even silences. It's how destiny whispers that there is something to be lived, understood, or perhaps redeemed. It breaks through chronological time and opens spaces where the deeper meaning of things emerges with clarity. These encounters are not merely to complete the other person, but to awaken something within. That's why synchronicity is never neutral. It's an invitation, a call to pay attention, to trust the unseen, and to follow with courage the path that reveals itself when two souls are ready to recognize each other, even if the world around them cannot understand. In the end, synchronicity is destiny's voice, speaking through symbols, gestures, and mysteries. It reminds us that behind the apparent randomness of life, there is a hidden order, a silent purpose guiding us toward what truly matters. The reunion with what and with whom transforms us. Within Jung's analytical psychology, the archetypes of the anima and animus are key to understanding the depth of emotional bonds and the feeling that someone entering our life awakens something long asleep. Jung defined the anima as the archetypal image of the feminine within a man's psyche, while the animus represents the masculine archetype within a woman's psyche. These figures are not mere romantic projections or ideals. They are living expressions of the unconscious that shape, influence, and even guide our most meaningful relationships. The anima and animus act as inner mirrors that, when projected onto another, create a feeling of deep recognition. It's not simply attraction but archetypal resonance, something inside us saying, "This is it." When two souls are destined to meet again, what is really happening is the mutual activation of these archetypes. The other person begins to reflect parts of ourselves that were hidden, undeveloped, or repressed. The love that arises in such connections is not merely personal. It's a bridge between the conscious and unconscious, between who we are and who we are becoming. Yet this projection is ambiguous. At first, it can make us see perfection in the other that doesn't truly exist. We feel we've found the one, someone who completes us and awakens us like no one else ever could. But over time, the projection fades, revealing the real person behind the idealized image. That's the critical turning point. Many give up then, believing the magic is gone. In truth, that's when the real relationship begins, the one built not on unconscious ideals, but on awareness, acceptance, and authenticity. Jung didn't see the anima and animus as elements to be eliminated, but integrated. They are bridges to self-knowledge, and relationships become the stage where that integration happens. The person who draws us so intensely often helps us, without knowing, to meet the parts of ourselves that need to awaken. The man, falling for a woman who embodies his anima, is being guided to connect with his sensitivity, intuition, and openness. The woman, meeting a man who mirrors her animus, is being called to develop her inner strength, clarity, and assertiveness. These archetypal reunions are rarely smooth. As mirrors, the other person reflects our lacks, fears, and contradictions. The reunion with the soul's mirror often hurts because it dismantles the ego, confronts expectations, and demands courage to see beyond the surface. But it's within that friction that growth occurs. The destined relationship isn't the one that simply works out, but the one that transforms. It leads us past the illusion of external completeness toward inner wholeness. The anima and animus also explain why we sometimes feel drawn to someone who doesn't fit our usual patterns. The soul recognizes the symbol before the mind does. This recognition is not merely emotional, it's symbolic. The other's presence activates inner images, dreams, intuitions, and even existential crises. All this is part of integration. When two souls meet again under the force of these archetypes, the love that emerges carries a taste of eternity, not because it is without conflict, but because it touches dimensions of the psyche beyond time. These bonds defy logic, resist forgetting, and remain alive even after separation. That's because the true reunion isn't only with the other, but with what the other awakens within us. The challenge then isn't to maintain the projection, but to let it dissolve and still choose to love the real, not the ideal, to love the being, not the image. And that is only possible when we understand that the other didn't come to complete us but to reveal us. When that awareness arises, the relationship becomes a path of shared individuation, a journey where each, by recognizing the other as a mirror, draws closer to the self. Thus, the reunion of souls is not just a privilege of fate, but a sacred opportunity for the anima and animus to cease being unconscious shadows and become allies in the process of becoming whole. The idea that two souls are destined to meet again is often wrapped in romance, harmony, and completeness. Yet through the lens of Jung's analytical psychology, we see that true reunions, the ones that truly transform, also carry pain, confrontation, and deconstruction. That's because meeting the other means also meeting our shadow, the set of repressed, denied, or unacknowledged aspects of our psyche. And love, when deep and symbolic, reveals all that the ego tried to hide. Jung said no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, there's no path to wholeness that doesn't pass through the shadow. When two souls are destined, their union doesn't merely fulfill emotional needs or offer comfort. It becomes a psychic mirror that activates what's latent: childhood wounds, old traumas, insecurities, and fears. Love, then, becomes a field of revelation. The other person, in intimacy, touches precisely where we are still unfree. The pain in these relationships is not failure, but depth. Something is being worked through that transcends the bond itself. The shadow can appear as jealousy, reactivity, manipulation, avoidance, or sudden withdrawal. These are not signs of incompatibility, but reflections of unintegrated parts within. Such destined relationships challenge the ego. They shake our certainties, roles, and even identities. What once felt safe becomes uncertain because the other activates our discomfort zones. And that's not a mistake, it's an opportunity. The pain that emerges is not punishment, it's pedagogy. It teaches. It shows where we are still wounded, where we still sabotage ourselves, where we still expect from others what only we can give ourselves. The shadow is not evil itself, but the unaccepted. It can hold destructive impulses, but also repressed talents, genuine emotions, deep desires, and creative power stifled by social conditioning. When two souls truly meet, they become catalysts for each other's individuation. The relationship becomes a laboratory where the hidden parts of the psyche are exposed to consciousness. That's why such connections often go through intense cycles of closeness and distance, moments of fusion when separation feels impossible, and moments of rupture when pain seems unbearable. Yet even in separation, something endures, because the bond is anchored deeper than emotion or matter. It's tied to both souls' psychic destiny. True alchemy happens when, instead of blaming the other for the pain, we ask, what is this showing me about myself? That's the start of transformation. Pain ceases to be punishment and becomes a portal, and the other, even if no longer physically present, remains as an agent of change. Often, the reconnection of two souls isn't about staying together forever, but about triggering a journey of self-discovery that would have been impossible otherwise. Once the shadow is integrated, it dissolves conflict and expands the capacity to love with maturity, awareness, and depth. That's what makes these connections unforgettable. They move the soul, they dismantle illusions, they reveal truth. So when pain arises in a fated reunion, it should not be seen as something gone wrong. On the contrary, it may be the greatest sign that something profound is emerging. To love in this sense is not just to wish the other well, but to allow them to reveal us, even when it disrupts us. For in the end, the soul doesn't seek comfort, it seeks wholeness. And pain, paradoxically, can be the most direct portal to that truth. In Jung's psychology, the concept of individuation is central. It is the process by which a person becomes who they truly are, not by creating a new identity, but by realizing their total psychic nature, integrating all their parts, even the denied or forgotten ones. It's a reconnection with the self, the central guiding essence of the psyche that transcends the ego and leads the soul back to its core. And when two souls are destined to meet, that encounter's purpose goes beyond affection or pleasure. It is shared individuation. In the collective imagination, relationships are often idealized as sources of happiness or completeness. But from Jung's perspective, the other person is not here to complete us, but to confront us with what we are not yet. The soul that returns to our path carries like a mirror what must be seen, and when that connection is meaningful, as in Destined Souls, it becomes a catalyst for awakening unconscious depths. To individuate as a pair requires awareness. It demands that each be willing to look inward, recognize projections, embrace shadows, and release the illusion that the other exists to fulfill their needs. When that happens, the relationship shifts from a game of demands to a dance of revelations. Every encounter, conflict, and silence becomes fertile ground for mutual growth. The individuation process is not linear, nor are relationships. There are moments that call for closeness and surrender, and moments that require distance and solitude. What matters is not constant physical presence, but symbolic alignment with truth, one's own and the other's. When two souls meet again with this awareness, they understand they are not there to merge into one, but to walk side by side in deep harmony. Individuating together means shattering idealizations. At first, one may see the other as perfect, as the answer to all inner voids, but that image cannot last. The real being emerges, with flaws and struggles, and that's where the real love begins. Loving what's real, not what's imagined. The other stops being a character in our story and becomes a universe of their own, with their own wounds, history, and light. Respect for the other's individuality becomes sacred, and paradoxically, the more we respect their path, the clearer our own becomes. The soul learns through difference, not similarity. The reunion of souls is not about mirroring perfectly, but about complementing symbolically, provoking evolution. There is a rare beauty in such bonds. They depend not on form, but on meaning. Two people can live far apart, follow different paths, and yet remain connected at the deepest psychic level. That's because the individuation triggered by their encounter keeps working within. The other becomes an inner guide, a living image of what was awakened and can never sleep again. Thus, when we speak of destined souls, we speak not just of romance or union, but of transformation, encounters that push us beyond comfort into the raw truth of who we are. These relationships demand spiritual maturity, emotional openness, and existential courage. Because the path of individuation is, by nature, solitary, yet paradoxically, it is often through the presence of another that it reveals itself most clearly. To individuate together is to learn to love without possessing, to embrace without consuming, to walk together without losing one's own direction. It is realizing that the other is not the destination, but the mirror showing where the true destination lies, within oneself. When two souls meet again and accept this higher purpose, their love transcends time, matter, and even coexistence. It becomes a bond of souls, not because it binds, but because it liberates. Throughout this journey, we've delved deep into the unconscious to understand that soul reunions are not accidents, but expressions of a greater psychic purpose. When two souls are destined, it's not just about romance or affinity, it's about transformation, revelation of the shadow, activation of archetypes, and above all, individuation. Synchronicity acts as a bridge, the Anima and animus as mirrors, and pain as a portal for growth. These connections do not exist to complete us, but to awaken us. The true reunion is the one that challenges us to become whole. And when we learn to see in the other not just a partner, but a catalyst for evolution, love ceases to be desire and becomes consciousness. If this message touched you in any way, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue receiving deep reflections on the soul, the unconscious, and self-discovery. And don't miss the video appearing now on your screen. It continues this journey and may be the next step in your transformation. Remember, destiny never forgets what is true, and once the soul awakens, it never sleeps again.